Hello people, how are you? Alright, so today we are going to discuss about JSX and this is going to be a video with lot of content. It's a lengthy one, so if you don't want to take it all at once, please take required a break and then actually continue with it. But one thing that I want to make sure is like you please follow along. Open your VS Code or your favorite editor and start typing the code as I do. So in this video, I am going to talk about each and everything about JSX so that it actually makes you a superstar in JSX. Apart from that, we are also going to do a project, our first project. Okay, it's about my favorite pets. So we're going to do a first project without understanding of JSX, nothing beyond that, so that you kind of understand it completely. And then I will also touch base some of this extension of the project that you can do. So that will be a fun learning. All right. So without any delay, let's get to the business. And again, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe because I am going to create lot more valuable videos for you. So let's learn. All right, let's get to the business. We'll be using the Create React app to understand JSX and the coding related to that. If you are watching this video and you are not much aware of Create React app, please check out my last video where I have explained like how to do the React coding setup. With that, you should be able to kind of get started with Create React app and everything that we'll be doing in this video. Alright, so first thing that I'm going to do before I talk about JSX at all, I'm going to clean everything that is there in this file because we are not going to use most of it here. So let's go ahead, select this and then remove. And I don't need this logo as well, just remove everything. And instead of that, let us just have one single line of code, and we are going to have this one single line of code which is something like a h1, right? Let's say h1 and let's say JSX is awesome. All right, we still don't know what JSX is, but we just want to kind of clean things up and want to see like want to work with the minimalistic code so that we understand things in step-by-step manner. Okay, so we see JSX is awesome. That's great. Now the next thing that we are planning to do is try to understand what JSX is. So JSX is a combination of JavaScript and HTML. It is a JavaScript extension syntax. So it means that we'll be writing HTML and JavaScript together. What is the advantage of it? Advantage of it that unlike many other frameworks or probably the user interface libraries which have the concept of having the template, which is like the HTML part is completely different than the main logic of the business like the JavaScript part. React is work kind of in a different way. React work in the component based way, which means that each component, one component is a single unit, isolated unit that should perform one job completely. Now to perform that one job, it has to do not only the computation part, which is like JavaScript part, it also needs to do the presentational part. So it means if I take one component and kind of apply it there, it not only takes the computational part with it, it also takes the presentational part also with it. That's the reason one component in React should have both HTML and JavaScript together, right? With that particular philosophy, JSX is a syntax that is defined by Facebook React. It is not something that browser understand out of the box. So what browser understand, basically this JSX syntax gets transpiled to a language that browser understand, which is nothing but the plain JavaScript and HTML. Now for us, as we are using Create React app, that transpilation is being done by Babel. We are not taking that headache because we just want to focus on learning JSX here. But let's talk about a few things so that we understand and appreciate JSX much better way and don't feel like that it's an alien. We just kind of feel like it is yet another JavaScript thing, but it's a different syntax just we need to kind of get used to, right? So let's do this. So I'll just remove this code and try to make things a little bit more simplified. So what we'll do is first we'll create a simple JavaScript variable, say called JSX. You can name it anything, and then I am going to write the same piece like JSX is awesome, right? So I write the same particular piece, and then what I do return of this JSX. Now how these things work, basically we will understand component in depth in the next video, but for this particular video, this is a functional component in React. Functional component means it's a plain JavaScript function which starts with a function keyword and a function name, and inside that you have bunch of statement, right? Nothing more than that. And what finally happened is that this particular function is kind of exported from this file so that it can be imported into another file and make use of it. Why it is special in the React circumstances? The thing that it returns, this particular function returns, it is of the form of JSX. Now you can say, hey, I just see a h1 tag, it is just plain HTML, it is not at all there is no JavaScript, how come it is a JSX? Yes, it is a JSX because I have not used any JavaScript yet. We'll be using the JavaScript momentarily, but as it is just HTML, still in the React context, it is returned from this particular component, it is a JSX. Okay, so this particular one, if I just refresh, it is going to give me the same output like before. Instead of returning from over here, I have just now taking this particular JSX into a variable. I'm returning that variable instead. So this is kind of same thing, doing the same thing just we have done before. Now I told that JSX is something that browser doesn't understand. Alright, so then what exactly the alternative? If we don't want to use this transpilation, if we don't want to use this Babel and things like that, if we don't want to use JSX, let's say. If we don't want to use JSX, we can still code in React. How it will be? React has a utility function called create element. So whenever we do like this h1 JSX is awesome, at the background, React actually calls the method called create element. What exactly that create element does? It creates a particular structure that browser understand well. It creates an object structure that browser understand well, and React uses that kind of object structure to render the elements on the UI, right? So what would be the alternative of this particular JSS text that I have written over here? The alternative would be as simple as this. So it will be react.create element, and then you have to pass something. You have to pass 3 parameters. The first parameter should be what is the type. In this case, the type is h1, the tag. And then you have to pass basically what are the properties that this h1 is having, what are the attributes this h1 is having. In this one, the h1 doesn't have any attributes, so you'll be passing null. And the last thing, what is the children of this h1? The children of the h1 is a string which says JSX is awesome. So what you're going to do, you will be passing this particular string called JSX is awesome. Now think about it. If I ask you to start creating this component, the JSX part in this way, with the create element way, for things like JSX is awesome is fine, but the moment things started getting complex, like you have a div, inside that you have a h1, you have a div, inside that you have another div, inside that you have a ul tag, then an li tag, I think you will start hating doing things like react.create element way, right? That is the reason we need to understand JSX. We need to understand why exactly it is so useful for us, right? So let's do one quick thing over here. What we'll be doing is like, we'll be going back to our older code. But before that, let me try to print this thing, console.log of JSX. And after that, what I'm going to do, I'll be returning this JSX. So let's see what exactly it prints into the console. Because this is very important to understand that JSX is not a very ordinary thing. It is from React, and what exactly it produces that browser understand. Okay, so I'll save this and we'll open the browser console and see like what exactly it outputs. Okay, so if we see this particular console.log from app.js6 line number 6, it actually printed an object, a JavaScript object that browser understand very well, and any JavaScript related library can actually consume this object and can do whatever they want, right? So what exactly it has, you see the type is h1, this is nothing but this one, and then it has some props. In that props, if I see, it has a children which is like JSX is awesome, and of course it doesn't have any kind of attributes and properties, so that is not overlisted. So this is what the JSX is providing. Now if I go ahead and start doing the similar kind of thing with react.create element, we'll be seeing the similar kind of output. So let's see that once, right? So what we'll do is, over here, const, let's do lm equals to react.create element, and then the first thing is the type is like h1, then you actually do null because I don't have any attribute, and then I'm writing like, you know, JSX is awesome. And then what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to print this console.log of lm. So in this case, we'll be seeing the same output for both the cases, the JSX and the react.create element way. Okay, so let me save this guy. We'll see that in a minute. Okay, it fails a bit because we have not imported React. So this is one important thing to remember, that usually you don't have to import React if you're just doing some, you know, normal stuff over here. But anything and everything that you are using from the React library, in that case you have to explicitly import React. So we are using the create element stuff from here. So that's the reason we have to import React. And the moment we import React, it will start working. Do you see that? So this one is the line number 6. This is the JSX one. This is line number 9. This is this element one. If I just expand this, it's exactly the same like before. Type is h1. Then it has the children. JSX is awesome. So h1. So this is to prove that basically the JSX that we are defining is exactly creating a similar thing that from the react.create element. You know, nothing beyond that. In any practicality, in your entire coding life, you don't have to use react.create element ever. So don't bother about it much. But theoretically, you need to understand for your interviews. You need to understand. So that's the whole reason of touching it, right? Okay. Now let us do this. We have this JSX. It's a normal JSX, and we'll probably going to remove all these things. We're going to remove all these things. Now you can actually make this one a little bit complex. For example, I want a little bit complex one. I just want a div over here, and let's create a div with an ID. Let's say call some ID, and then I close this guy. I have h1 inside this, and then I close this div as well. And h1 also I'm going to give some ID, say, you know, maybe header ID. Yeah, header ID. All right, so this is a complex structure. Now if you print this structure, what you will see, let's print this structure as well so that we understand the piece completely. And what we'll see, you know, visually you won't be able to see any effect because this is still a h1 but inside a div, which is not very visible, but we'll see what exactly it prints in the console.log, right? So check it out here that it is of type div because that's the parent one. Inside the div you have an ID now, which is like some ID which was not there before. Then it has a children. Inside the children you have another type called h1, and then h1 is having another ID called header ID, and then you have another children, whatever is Java, you know, JSX is awesome. So this is how the tree structure will work, and React can consume it, and it can perform its own operation to render this value into the UI. We'll see the usage of this particular construction when we learn the concept of reconciliation, virtual DOM in depth in the upcoming video. But for now, you understood that JSX is special, but at the end of the day is something that your browser understands. All right. So let us move on to doing something a little bit more funny. But before that, I really don't like creating your JSX like this. Is actually a little bit weird. So what I try to do usually, and most of the developers they do, is basically they don't write the JSX over here. They definitely do a lot of JavaScript related computations. We'll learn that, but they do the JSX writing from here. Now the return is like this. If you have a single statement to return, single JSX statement to return, you can return it just after the return statement. But if there are multi lines, you should give a parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis you put your JSX. Okay, so I'll just format this file a little bit, format this document so that it looks better, and then save the stuff. So this is going to give the similar output, but only thing that we did over here is like we have not done this JSX part outside as a variable and use that variable. We have kind of declared everything inside, and it has a reason, because we want to do a lot of JavaScript declarations, function, variable declaration, function declarations, object, all these things outside of this return, because those are the things are not allowed inside JSX, the declaration part. So we'll do it kind of outside of this return, and we'll be using them inside this return, so that we are using them inside the JSX. So this is the way we can actually keep a good separation. So most of the React developers kind of write code in this way. and we'll also kind of follow in this way. So this is, again to repeat, JSX is a very special syntax which look like HTML and JavaScript combination, and we, from the React container, we return a JSX, and this is what exactly we have done. Okay, so the next thing that we want to kind of concentrate or the focus on is like first tricky thing, out of your HTML boundary is like how to add a comment in JSX. So how are you going to add a comment? The simplest way to add a comment in JSX is this. You have this curly braces and then this two pair of thing, and then inside that you can always write a comment like, say this is JSX. So this is the way that you actually add comments in the JSX, and I think in any programming language, this is a very basic thing that you need to learn, is like how to add a comment, because you want to add certain comments in your programming. So this is how you do it, right? So I'll save this. This is going to work. So now the next thing that we want to do is like we want to introduce some sort of JavaScript so that we understand this is purely JSX. This is not only HTML, right? So what we'll do is like first let us create maybe a simple string with a variable declaration. Let's say the string is called JSX, and you know that if it is a string, it has to be inside a single quote or double quote. That's how we are having, and we want to use this string topic instead of this hard-coded JSX value. How are you going to do this? So this is one fundamental thing that you need to remember, is everything as in JavaScript, if you want to use in the JSX, you have to use it as an expression. Expression always means which results into something, which evaluates to something. So to use anything as an expression in JSX, you actually use inside this curly braces. So if I want to use this topic and want this topic to evaluate, when actually all this transpilation happen and everything happen, then what I have to do, I can use this topic, but I'll be using it inside this curly braces. So if I do this, now this topic will be replaced with the value, this particular JSX value. Now you see this is true JSX. You have HTML, you also have used something from JavaScript. This is the power of it, right? Now we have not realized this power very, very deep, but we are going to do this, pretty soon. Now let's say if I just change this JSX to React, what do we expect? We expect this to change React is awesome immediately. See that? React is awesome. Yeah, it is awesome indeed. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to do is like we want to kind of talk about a few more data types that we can actually deal with. So this is a string. Maybe the next thing that we can deal with is like say a number type. Let's take age. Let's take maybe array is called say likes. Whatever the likes is probably JSX. Then say React. I'm just putting something random, then do Redux. Okay, so I have this likes, right? Now what I'm going to do is like I want to take advantage of each of this inside my JSX. How am I going to do that? Let me just start printing them one by one, right? First I have done h1, and inside that I have used the JSX to print this topic. Let me just take the next one in a h2 maybe. And in here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to print the value of age. How am I going to print the value of age, by the way? Same concept. I am going to take this age, evaluate it as an expression inside JSX, and then I am done. Basically, I am done with this h2 done. Okay, so this is how the h2 things work, and this age will come and 39 will come here. Okay, so we have age 39. Now let's do one thing. Let's try to print likes. This is a little bit different, right? Isn't it? Because this is an array. What do you think the output will be? So the output is going to be a little bit different than if you anticipate that it is going to actually print it just like an array, which is subscripts and then JSX, then comma, then React, then Redux. No, it's not going to be like that. Let's see that and then try to understand why it is not like that. So if I do h2 and then I do likes, okay? And let us just print this one over here and see like what exactly it prints. Alright, so it prints like JSX, React and Redux, right? So it doesn't print things like, exactly like how it was like an array, like the complete array format. Okay, now one important lesson. The important lesson is like how to handle boolean inside JSX. Now if you just do, for example, h2 and then type a boolean like say true, what do you expect? If you expect this true to kind of appear over here, of course it has to be inside this curly braces to evaluate, appear over here, it won't. Basically the boolean, undefined, null, all these things, once they get evaluated, they are not going to print anything unless they are casted to string, right? So let's take this as an example. If you see it here, I am now actually inspecting it. So after this h2 where you have this array thing done, the next h2 is this boolean true. See here, there is nothing printed, though the element has been created correctly, but it's not going to print anything over here, because for boolean, undefined and null, please remember this interview question again, it is not going to print anything. Now if you have to print this true, what you're going to do is you have to take like string and then cast it. Basically, if you just do this casting, it is going to render true for you now. You got it, right? So you have true and you have this true over here. So this is great. So we have learned various types. Now, often you might face a situation where you have to use certain conditions like the if and else, right? If and else is a very, very famous paradigm in programming. But you have to remember one thing, another very important thing is like in JSX, you cannot use if and else. You cannot write things like, bracket and then, if say true, then you do something. You cannot do this. If is not at all allowed thing to write over here, so it's going to cry for, error and it is not going to work. But in programming, I think it might be very essential that at some time at the JSX level, you want to kind of branch out certain things. If age is greater than 39, the likes is probably movies. If age is less than 39, the likes is probably something in sports. Like if you want to do certain kind of thing over here, and based on that, you do a conditional printing. So though the if else is not supported, you have a support of ternary operator. You have the support of this particular operator, where you can do a lot of conditions from. So for example, you can always do things like, say, if it is true, then do something like h3 of test, and then if it is not true, then you do something like h3, then you do something like null. Don't print anything. Don't actually put any element into the your DOM. So this is going to work. This is definitely going to work. It is going to print test because it is always true. You see that it is printing test because this is true, right? So if you want to do any kind of conditional stuff, use this particular operator. Don't try to use if else. It is not going to work. For the similar thing, if you want to loop through certain things, for example, you have this likes, right? And you might want to kind of loop through these likes. The first thing might come into your mind is like you would be using a for loop or a while loop or any such loops. Okay, my friend, the loops are not going to work in JSX. Okay, so that is another thing that you need to keep in mind. So if you want to iterate over any of the collections or array, you have to use the map method. Map is a method that you can use on an array to fetch each of the elements from the array, and you can do everything that you want to do. Okay, let us see that example. So I'm going to take this likes, and I'm going to actually put map on this. So what exactly map does? Map, just like your, it actually showing over here a function that accepts up to 3 arguments. The map method calls the callback function one time for each element on the array, and in that callback function we can do everything. We don't want these 3 elements right now. We are just focusing on only one parameter, that is our callback function. So with the callback function, we are going to take element from this particular array one by one, and we want to do something about it. Okay, just disclaimer is like I'll be preparing one video explaining JavaScript array methods, specifically the map, reduce, filter, find and fill. Stay tuned for that. So I'll be explaining the map methods and things like that in much more details. Okay, so for now, how it works basically, it actually take this particular element, and then in this you can do basically anything. So I am just taking this h3, and I can actually do like. So if you are new to array syntax, the arrow function syntax, I think this will be a bit new for you. I have used an arrow function over here. If I'm supposed to write in a proper normal function, it will be like this. Say function like, and then you have this bracket, and inside this you do things like h3, and then you have things like this, like, right? So you'll be doing things like this. So instead of that was much more shorter. And in my Enter React course, I am not going to write function like this, because I want you guys to be accustomed with arrow functions, because that is the way you can actually do things much faster. And please, it is really worth the learning. So I'll revert back my stuff to arrow function, and please note over here what I am doing. I am actually taking each of the like from this likes array over here, means each of the element, and then I'm printing this element over here. Now for this element is again a part of JavaScript construct, right? For this to get evaluated, for this to get kind of print, you have to again use this expression. So that is the why I'm using it as an expression, and that is why it is printing. So I'll print this. I'll probably get a warning, but let's face this first. Though it worked, but I think I will get a warning. So if I go over here in my console for a second, what I see is there is a warning called each child in a list should have a unique key property. Okay, fair enough. We will learn about the list and keys in future, but what it's saying is like, hey, you are actually looping through something and you're listing down something. Basically, you're looping through this JSX, React and Redux, JSX, React and Redux, and you're listing them. So for each of the list, I am expecting a special attribute called key, and in this attribute you want to put something very unique, so that for each of the line the key value should be different. That is what is expecting. The main purpose of this one, we'll learn it in detail, because the beautiful part of React is like it uses virtual DOM. We all know, like it doesn't change your DOM directly. That is why it is very fast. So it means that only the place that has got changed in terms of data and the state, React is going to modify only that bit in your DOM, not going to modify everything. Now, how is React going to identify what exactly got changed or what exactly I have to modify? For that, it actually identifies using the things called this key. So in a list, if there is one thing changed out of 1,000 things, it is going to change that one thing identified by this particular key value. So why the key value also has to be unique. As in our array, all the values are kind of unique. JSX, React and Redux, we are going to use our array value itself as our key, but in future when we talk about the list and keys, we will learn it in much more detail, saying that what is the right value to use for keys and how to do the list and key stuff. Okay, now this particular warning will go off. Alright friends, so I don't see any warning and things have also printed beautifully, so we can actually proceed further to our next thing. Okay, so I hope that so far things are kind of alright. We are understanding how the JSX works, the integrity stuff. So let me just collect everything to talk about like what exactly works and what exactly doesn't work in JSX. So in JSX, everything that evaluate as a value that is like JSX allowed value that are permitted. For example, a string, a number, a boolean. If you have an array, yes, is an array. A map function to iterate through an array. If else is not allowed, so you have to use this operator to actually do this condition stuff. If you have an object, a plain JavaScript object, you can actually query that object to get its value based on the key, and if the value is returned as a valid JSX allowed piece, you can always actually query that inside JSX, inside this braces, and of course the comment is also allowed. So this is the thing. This is a pretty simple thing. It's like this is something that we need to keep in mind. This is the constraint of JSX, and this is how JSX works. And with this, actually, you can use the real power of it and start building things right now. So in the next section, what we are going to do, we are going to build an app. So this is our first project. This is our first project app that we're going to build today. We'll be creating a very simple, app to display pets. My favorite is cat. So you're going to display probably a couple of cats, and we want to see everything that we have learned as a power of JSX. Okay, so let's do that. So for the pets app, we need a couple of pets, right? So we need data of pets. So what I have done is basically I have created an array of pets. it has like 2 pets. I'll just copy paste that because I don't want to waste the time of typing that. So let's understand what exactly this array has. Basically, for a moment, let me just take this guy out and so what it has is, it has 2 pets. Each of these objects represents each of these pets data. It has a name, say Dolly's type is cat, and it has a small description of Dolly. It has Dolly skills, like, Dolly tries to fetch whenever it sees a rat, and, it's play like it's dead and roll over. And there is an image that I have actually kept in cloud of Dolly, and that I actually want to use over here. Similarly, there is Molly, another cat. And then you have its description, again the skills and the image. So what we're going to do over here is like we're going to use this data. It's something little bit more realistic. Like, in a real world, you'll be getting this data by making API call, getting from the database or a data store, and you want to do kind of render that as an application in an application and want to see that. We are going to do similar thing, but our focus over here is to learn JSX, right? In future videos, of course, we'll see like how to get the data from a data store by making the API call with the fetch and all these things, but let's park that for now. All right, so what we'll be doing is like this, our JSX part is pretty empty. So what we're going to do, we are going to now, first thing we're going to do is like, we are going to give a h1 saying like, hey, my pets, right? And this is a time that I can actually bring this guy back and use it like over here. Okay, so it's my pets, and of course after that what I can do is like the pets is an array. So you go here. We definitely want to iterate through this one, right? So if you remember, like we had taken this likes array right before, and we have iterated through. What we used for iterating, we have used something called map. So what we'll be doing is like on this pets, we'll be iterating this pets through this pets, and we'll be using this map, right? And in general, whenever you try to list down something, here we'll be listing, right? We'll be listing each of these cats. You use the listing structure, the list element in HTML, which is like li tag, and usually an li tag actually comes under the ul tag. So ul is nothing but an unordered list. For our thing is like it's definitely unordered. We don't want to say this is my first cat, second cat, third cat. So it is like a ul, and inside that we want to do a li, which is like list of element. For each of the list, we want to actually render each of these cats information. All right, so then we'll be opting for ul, and then what we'll be doing is inside ul, each of the li should be each of this cat information. Now we can do like first li, do a pets of 0 and then extract out things and kind of print it. Then in the next li, do a pets of 1 which will give me this element and kind of do the things. But we want to kind of keep it dynamic so that tomorrow one more cats get added. We don't have to change our JSX at all. So for that purpose, what we'll be doing now is like we'll start doing this map thing over here. Okay, let's do. For using the map, we need to give these braces, right? So that is where the things get evaluated, and we'll get the values. So we'll be like pets dot map. All right, and what we'll be doing, we'll be using the arrow function as I told. So what arrow function, the first thing is each of the elements, like each of the pet, and the second thing is like an index, basically the first or second. If you don't need it, you can omit it, but we can actually use it for one purpose that I'm going to show you now. So the next thing that what we're going to do is an arrow function. So we'll be doing this, and this is the construct of the arrow function. This is the construct of the map. Again, you can write it as regular function, but let's do arrow function because that's what works inside JSX, and I want you to understand arrow function much deeper, so you can go and read about it so that you can actually work with it much more proficiently. All right, so now inside this, what we are going to do, we are going to print each of these li. This is our time to print each of these li. So we can do this li. Now inside li, we can actually do bunch of things. So what we can actually start printing things like h2 for the first pet. For each of this pet, I am going to display pet dot name. Let us do this much. Let us do this much and see whether I am able to see the name of Dolly and Molly getting printed over here. Yeah, so we have Dolly and Molly printed over here. But are we missing anything? Do you recognize what we're missing? Last time when we spoke about this map function, we told that whenever we are iterating and printing it as a list, we need to provide something called a key, right? So that React understand when something change, what exactly to change. Now in this case, what we can actually use this index. Again, this is just a time being, we'll learn better when it talk about the list and keys. So this index will be kind of unique, like 0, 1, things like that. So we can actually use this index as a key. But hold on, we'll be talking about some of the anti-patterns towards the end of this series, where we'll be seeing that what is the right way to using these keys. Okay, so for now, let's go ahead with this key index. So this is fine, this is great. Now how about printing other details? Apart from name, it has many other details. So let's go ahead and start printing those details one by one. The next thing that we can do is, like, it has an image. Why don't we bring Dolly and Molly's image, and let's see that how they look. So for that, we'll be using an image tag. An image tag works with an src, and for that, what we can do is, like, each of the pets, what is the key name is image. And of course, if you are using an image, never ever forget to use an alt attribute. Bring it as a practice, basically, because this is good for accessibility. If in case the image is broken, at least it will show the name of it. And then the last thing that probably we can do is, like, give some kind of, I'll probably put it in the next line so that we can see it properly. We can give some kind of width to this. We don't know how big the image is gonna be, so for now let's put a 200 width, and then let's give a height to this. Let's give 200, like a square, and then that's all about our image. Let's keep the image tag close, and we are expecting Dolly and Molly to appear just now. They're cute, aren't they? All right, so we have actually done with images. Now we have to do rest of the things, right? Rest of the things means we have a description, and then we also have things like skills, right? So let's do a description. Let's put the description right after the h1 tags. Let's put a p, and over here let's put a pet dot description, so that we have the name, and right after that we have the description. And then after that, we'll see how to handle the skills. So the description appears for Dolly and Molly. So now let's go ahead and handle the skills. So again, the skills are again an array, right? And we want to kind of print this over here. So what you can do, how are you planning to give these skills into this particular UI? The philosophy is again the same. It's an array, so we want to kind of treat it like a list. So we'll be again putting an ul-li, list over here. So it's again unordered list. So let's do that. Let's put this ul, and inside ul we'll be again looping through these particular skills. So the skills, how are you going to loop through? Of course, using the map. So what we'll be doing here, we'll be doing like pet dot skills dot map, and then what it takes again 2 parameters. One is like each of the skill, and then again the index, right? And then what you can do over here, you can actually do this stuff. You can do an arrow function, and in the arrow function over here, you can actually start writing your code. You can do like li, key equals to, I want to do like, say, maybe skill, each of the skill probably you can do, or we can do index. But here is the point. See, index can be 0, 1, 2 for this particular array, also is going to be 0, 1, 2 for this particular array, also is going to be 0, 1, 2. So if you give this key is equals to index, here the key will be 0, here also key will be 0. There is a chance of conflict. That's what I was telling, that we'll be talking about this list and keys in much more details later. But for now, let's just use any value, so that we can actually more concentrate on doing JSX than learning all other future aspects that we'll be learning sooner in the future videos. So we'll be closing this li, and that's pretty much it. So what we did, basically, we taken the skills, which is nothing but this array, and again we are looping through the skills. And while looping through the skills, what are we doing over here is, like, we're taking each of the skill, and then we are printing inside this li in this ul-li screen. So if I save this, it is going to print each of the skills, like playdate, mew, par for Molly, and it's going to fetch playdate rollover is for dear Dolly. So let's do that. Bingo. So we have this, right? So we have created our first project for listing out our pets, cats, and we are quite successful in that. However, this project's look and feel is still not great, right? So that's why I actually mentioned in my initial videos is like, while doing this project, if you are not very much aware of CSS, you are going to learn certain CSS, certain styling aspects along with doing ReactJS project. So in next 5 minutes, we are going to spend time on doing styling and explain some of the styling aspects so that you get accustomed to it. So in your future projects, you should be able to use those styling quite flawlessly. All right, so let's do that. Let us add a few classes to the tags, so that we can actually take those classes to do our styling. Now this is another point to remember. In React, you don't add class as, say, class equals to, for example, app. You don't do this. React has certain specialization for certain attributes, so that you have to actually write the way that React provides. For example, you cannot use this class like this. It might have some conflict. So you have to use something like class name. React will take care of translating into a proper class when it actually renders into the DOM. So whenever you want a class to add to your HTML hierarchy, please use class name instead of the bare class. If you use class, it is going to throw a warning. Okay, so we have added a class name called app. All right, so this is our first class name. Then you have seen some changes over here, right? From the left side, it just moved to the center. It is because there is, in the create React app, there is already an app.css file which is having a style called app, which is having certain attribute like rules, CSS rules, like say text align equals to center. That's the reason you are probably seeing this being centered. Okay, so this is first thing, but we don't have any other styles whatsoever. So let's go ahead and, for our purpose, go to app.css file, and what we're going to do, see, .app is having text align center. We are going to knock out everything because we don't need them. All right, let this app be there for now. We can actually change this to something else later point of time. Okay, come back to app.js file. In the app.js file, we are going to add a few more class names so that we can actually do the styling better way. So first thing that we are going to do at this UI level, we want to put one, say, class name equals to, let's put a class name called container, for example. So we have a class name called container over here. And then do we need any other class? Maybe this UI level, we can actually put another class so that, okay, there is a space which is missing. Okay, in this UI level, we put another class name so that we can actually, the skills we can actually style better way. So let's go ahead and put something like skills. I guess that's all for now. I think we can actually rock with it. It's like we can actually go ahead and start doing styling. So everything is set up. Now, first thing we want to kind of tackle is like, there are these bulleted dots, right? This bulleted dots comes by default from this li. So wherever you have this li, it actually gives you this bulleted dot. If it is like more indented, you have this indented one, but we really don't like to get those. So first thing we want to get rid of it. Okay, so let's do this one. In app.css, you can actually take this li selector, like wherever you see li, make this list style :none. So it means that wherever you see li in your application, make sure that you have this list style equals to none. See, all these dots are gone. So our first problem is fixed. Now next thing that we are going to do is we are going to do other styles one by one. Okay, so let's do the styles one by one. So first thing is, we'll be doing a style for our container. So for the container, let's do the style like container, correct spelling, container, and we are going to add the style over here. But let's see what exactly the container is. Container is nothing but this particular UL. So this particular UL is nothing but this entire thing. I want to put now the flex grid, the flex layout over there. So for that, we'll be doing like display flex. This is pretty good, and then we can actually justify the elements properly. Content will be doing like the center, and then we can actually do a align items, so we'll do a align items, that also will do a center, right? All right, so if we do this much, and then just save this one, we are supposed to kind of see like this is getting properly with the flex layout formatted. Yep, we see that. So now it is looking actually much better. It is much better style. Now let's think in this way. We have covered this UL part, but inside UL there is each of this li is nothing but each of the we want them to be kind of laid out little bit better way. So I'll just minimize this and then maximize this one a bit so that we can actually see see it in better way. So you might want a kind of border around this one, so that they look much prettier, much nice. So for that I have to actually catch this li and I have to start styling for this particular li. So let's do that. So to do that, as this li is inside this container, you can actually use this container and then select li just like this. So do like this container and then this greater than symbol is li. So it means that any li is that inside the element which is having a class name called container, that where this particular style will be applied. For us that is the case, right? So what we're going to do now, we are going to put some kind of border. Let's put some border like 1 pixel solid, maybe some light or say black color itself. So I have put 1 pixel solid black, and I can actually go ahead and put some border radius. We have this, so let's go ahead and put some kind of border radius. Border radius is basically going to make this border more curvy, on all the corner. So let's put some 4 pixel. We don't want it to be, too much circular, but at least it looks little bit better. So from that perspective, we'll put some 4 pixel of border radius, and we don't want this to be touched with each other. So we want some kind of distance from each other. Let's put some margin, we'll do a margin of 0.5 rem. And what we can also do is basically we can put some kind of padding so that inside also we have some space. It doesn't actually touch this boundary completely. So you can actually put a padding also of 0.5 rem. Rem is basically an unit. There are various units like rem, em, px, vh, vw. A bunch of units are there. We can do a separate video for each of the CSS units, or you can learn from say FreeCodeCamp or any other resources. Just a quick overview of REM is basically one REM is around 16 pixel. It is relative to your HTML's font size. So normally most of the browser is 16 pixel. So 0.5 REM will be around 8 pixel. So we have to, given the margin and all these things, you see that it started looking kind of pretty well. All right. So the last thing that what we can do is like we have actually styled this guy called skills, like class names called skills. This is little bit off aligned. We want them side by side, like fetch, play date, and rollover side by side. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll again take skills. We can just do say display flex. By default, the flex works in a row fashion. So by default, it will be actually coming in a row, and it will start align things in a row one by one. See here, it's going to align in a row. And maybe what you want to do inside skills, again, each of these are li. So we have seen inside skills, each of these thing again li. You might want to do them little bit of center align. So for that you can do like skills, and then you do li. Here you can do like say text align, center, and maybe you can do a bit of padding, like say 0.2 rem. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like now it is going to kind of stay a bit center, and there are more distance between them, so the look and feel is going to be much better. All right, so I hope you enjoyed doing this dolly molly stuff, and you have these things kind of over here, and it is kind of responsive. As you see, it's getting proper listing is and we can actually make this styling much better. It's much responsive in nature. If you have other dolls data, cats data, you can actually go ahead and start adding those cat one by one. Your JSX part doesn't have any changes in that matter. So for example, if I just duplicate this guy and just print over here, so it means I have 3 cats. You can always go ahead and change this name, say Molly 2, Molly 1, or things like that, different picture and all. You will see the third one is getting appeared here without doing any further changes. See here, the third one is kind of, I've used the same description, same name and all, and same image and all. Maybe that is why it is coming, but you can always change. So you got the idea basically. So JSX is pretty powerful. Please go ahead and play with it. Start doing some project by yourself. One of the tasks that you can actually take from over here is like try to extend this particular project to add a combination of dog, cat, or whatever your favorite pets are, their particular combination, and then put them into the screen so that you have a bunch of pets together. So you can actually improvise on that. So I hope that you learn a lot of stuff from this particular video doing JSX. Please do a lot of practicing on that. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and you like doing things. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, again, please subscribe, because we are going to really go in length with this particular series. And if you have any questions about things that we have learned today, or you stuck with anything, please provide a comment into this YouTube video, or you can actually find me on Twitter. This is my Twitter handle, where you can DM me, and if I have bandwidth, I'll definitely respond to you. Additionally, you can also see in Showcase there is a React community, and I head that community. So you can join Showcase, and we can also start discussing some of these things over there. So there are plenty of options. All right. So in the next video, we are going to talk about components, and that's going to be a very fun video. So where we'll be talking about components, a little bit about states, how to pass data between components, the props, some of the good practices, some of the bad practices. And again, we'll be doing a project the one that we have done today, a separate, simple but effective project. All right. So until then, please take a good care of yourself, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll be back very soon in the next video. Thank you very much.